Morning guys, Jordan here with the Nutty Gnome Homestead. Today is March 25th, 2023, and we are out in the back part of our farm setting a couple swarm traps for bees. So this time of year, the bees are coming out of winter. They've gone through most of their winter stores. Things are starting to bloom. I can see henbit and dandelion and getting ready to have a couple more weeds pop up here. So I'm hoping that the bees start getting a little more active and getting out a little more. And now is the time to be setting your swarm traps in hopes of catching a swarm. Now, it is not good for your hive to swarm. If you can keep from having them swarm, that is the best practice. I suggest you get into your hives once every 2 weeks, at least twice a month if you can. Check everything out. They can go from everything's fine to swarming in just a matter of days. And once they get in that mindset of they're going to swarm, it's very hard to keep them from doing it. So what I'm out here doing is I've got 2 of my swarm traps already hung up. I'm getting ready to put some bait in them, and then I'm going to hang up a few more. Swarm traps don't have to be anything special. You can use old beehive equipment, which is basically what I use. I've got an old deep brood box here that the bottom part started to rot. I just scabbed a couple of boards onto it and made it have a somewhat solid bottom. It's not perfect, but it doesn't have to be. It's just a swarm trap. And I hung it up. I like to get everything a minimum of 4 feet off of the ground up to about 10 feet. Something that I can manage by myself in the woods, and I'm not having to carry ladders too far out to get it. I put a board on the back of every one of my swarm traps with a big hole in it. So if I see a branch or something, I can just hang it right on that branch, or I can put a nail up there or a screw and hang it right on that if I want to. Try to keep things simple and try to keep it safe. You don't want to be falling off of a ladder with a swarm box full of bees. They'll get pretty angry real quick. So we use lemongrass oil to bait our swarm traps. You can get this stuff on Amazon. I prefer the organic stuff whenever you can get it. You don't have to use lemongrass oil. There are several other swarm lures available, commercial. Swarm Commander is one of them. Lemongrass oil is pretty cheap and it works, so that's what we tend to use. It does not take much. A Q-tip, a little bit on the Q-tip, smear a little bit around the entrance of the swarm trap. I usually put a little bit on a frame or 2 on the inside, and then I put it in a plastic bag that is open, that way so the smell can permeate. And then I'll check these once a week, once every 2 weeks or so, just depending on what kind of time we have. And if I see some bee activity, you'll have scout bees come up, they'll check things out, they'll look around, and then if a hive is ready to swarm, they will make a signal or release a pheromone that they found a place, and they will bring the entire swarm to this location. So we want to make sure that we give them a good place to call their new home. So let me turn you guys around here and I'll show you one of my swarm traps. Okay, so this is a deep brood box that the bottom part was starting to rot around the edge, so I just scabbed a few pieces across the bottom, put a few boards on the bottom to make it look like there's an actual base in it, and then I took a 1-inch hole saw and drilled 2 holes side by side, kind of looks like a peanut, and I put 2 nails. That keeps birds and mice from trying to get in there as much. Some of the small birds will really try hard to get into these things. And then I just put a top on it. This is one of our plastic tops for our beehives. So let me take this top off, see if I can't do this one-handed. And inside, we just have some frames. It's nothing fancy. So, but one of the things I do try to do is I try to get some old brood comb. This is where the queen will lay her eggs, and the worker bees and the nurse bees will actually raise out the next generation. So this has a lot of pheromones impregnated into the wax. This stuff is great for attracting a swarm. So I try to make sure I have at least one frame of brood comb in every one of my swarm traps. It doesn't have to be a full frame. You can just have a piece about a quarter or a third of the size of a frame in there, and that's all it takes. Now if you guys see this little bag, there are a couple of holes punched in it, and there's 2 Q-tips. That's what I put my swarm lure on, that lemongrass oil. I've used this 2 years. I caught 1 swarm in it last year. Where this is going to be the 3rd year. This is hung in the same place. So I'm going to get some lemongrass oil, get this baited up real quick. Okay, so all we're doing again is I'm just trying to get a little bit on the Q-tip. Now I'm going to come up here to the front. This is where the bees are going to enter. I want them to smell this and think, oh, this is going to be a good place to call home. And then I will put some lemongrass oil on a couple of the frames. I don't know if it'll focus or not. And then we will put this into our bag. And I just lay that right on top. And that's all there is to one of these swarm traps, folks. I'm going to try to get a few more of these done. So hang on just a minute. So I'm about 100 yards away from that last swarm trap, and what you see here is a Nuka box that Nuka Bees comes in when you buy bees commercially. So these boxes are oftentimes thrown away. They are a little small for a swarm trap, but they will work. If it's all you have, make do with what you got. So we modified this Nuka box just slightly. We put a board on the back of it so we could attach it to the tree. And we try to make sure that all of the entrances of our swarm traps and our beehives face either south or east. We don't want the prevailing wind and rain to blow into the entrance of our hives or our swarm traps. If you can get your swarm traps up high, it tends to help the scent from the lemongrass oil or your commercial lure travel further, and it does tend to help. I do have more success out of our swarm traps that are up high. However, if you find a swarm down low, there's a good chance there's a reason those bees went there. So it's not out of the question that you'll get another swarm there. So like the box I showed you guys earlier was only about 4 feet off of the ground. There was a swarm there before, so that's why that box is there. So we're going to climb up this ladder, and I'm going to show you guys what's inside this box. Alright guys, so I'm about 10-11 feet up a tree, and what you see here is a Nuka box that we get our bees in when we buy them commercially, and we don't throw these away. These will actually make a halfway decent swarm trap if you do a little work to them. As you can see, we've added a wooden board back support that's actually screwed into it on the inside. We've got it mounted to the tree with a couple of screws, and if you open this up, you see we got 5 frames in there. A couple of them are partially drawn. You can see there's some wax on that one, a little partial drawing on this. So, but I've also got some frames in here that don't have much in them, and I got an empty frame here just to take up some space. So all I'm going to do is, and you guys are going to have to bear with me, I'm doing this one-handed. I'm going to take our swarm lure. I'm going to try to just take a Q-tip, dip it in there a little bit, get some of the lemongrass oil on this Q-tip. And this stuff smells phenomenal, folks, so if you get a little bit on you, it's not a problem. And as you can see, I'm just going to smear a little bit of this lemongrass oil around the entrance. We got a pretty good breeze today, and I'm going to dip this in here one more time. And if you folks can see this, I've got a bag. I've used this bag for 3 years in this swarm trap. I've caught swarms in this exact trap for the last 2 years. So I'm just going to take this Q-tip that I put the lemongrass oil on. I'll probably dip some on the other side, so it There's a little more in there. It's going to be the first time we bait it this year. So I'm also going to smear some. Okay, so this is the entrance right here at the front. I'm going to brush a little bit of this lemongrass oil on these middle 3 frames. I want that smell to be inside of this swarm trap. And then I'm going to put this Q-tip in this open Ziploc bag. As you can see, there's my other 2 Q-tips from the last 2 years. We put this in there. So, and I'm just going to lay this bag right on top. And that's it, folks. I'm going to close this up. We had about 6 inches of rain last night. Make sure I put the cap back on my lemongrass oil. Don't want to spill it. We had about 6 inches of rain last night. The bees have been cooped up for at least 24, probably closer to 36 or 40 hours now. Starting to warm up a little bit. They're going to start getting a little more active and start going out. So I want to get my swarm traps baited or lured, or however you want to say it. That way, so if anybody's bees do decide to swarm, we got a chance at catching them. Everything's getting more expensive, including bees. These nukes now are like $180 to $200 a piece. So we're going to do our best to do our own splits, try to mitigate getting the hive to actually swarm. You don't want that if you can keep from it. If you can keep your hive from actually swarming, you'll actually save money in the long run. But sometimes the weather keeps you from getting in the hive. Sometimes life just gets in the way and you don't get to them, and it happens. So I suggest you always have a couple swarm traps close to where you keep your bees. And then these things, most people just throw them away. You can pick them up, or you can make your own swarm traps. I've got one from an old box that actually the part of the bottom of the box had rotted out. So I just scabbed a couple boards on the bottom of it and hung it up. I've actually caught a swarm in it last year as well. So this is how we do our swarm traps here on the Nutty Gnome Homestead. I'm going to try to get about 8 or 10 of these put up. Increase your odds of actually catching a swarm. Okay guys, I literally just baited the swarm trap not 10 minutes ago. And if you guys can see, right up there is a scout bee. I've already had like 8 or 10 come around. So these bees are definitely waking up and getting ready to start checking out places to call their new home. Now, just because these scout bees are coming over here doesn't necessarily mean that a hive is going to swarm. These could be from my hive, they could be from one of the wild hives in the woods, they could be from the neighbor's hives. We don't know whose bees these are. But here's another bee just showing up. It's pretty cool. I was literally getting ready to go inside whenever I heard the bees. Figured I'd come over and take a look, and there's already scout bees on the swarm traps. So that's how this works, guys. Get out there and get those swarm traps set. Get you guys some free bees. I highly recommend it. There's another one. Here's 2 more. So if you guys have any questions or comments, please feel free to shoot me a line or leave a comment down below. If you guys have any suggestions for future videos, please let me know. But I appreciate you guys coming along. Till next time, y'all be safe.